Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Universal Journeys radio show with your hosts, Dr. Brenda L. Bates and Donny Winter. Follow your heart, for only you know which path is right for you. Universal Journeys Radio is about how spirituality intersects with nearly every other aspect of our lives, even when we do not see it or realize it. Creativity and expression are our connections to the spiritual energy many seek to understand, and our identity is forged through this process. Universal Journeys seeks to help illuminate the different intersections between creativity, spirituality, and identity in order to empower and enlighten. And tonight we will be joined by guest Janie Saylor, who is a life coach and advocate for addiction and recovery awareness. She is also the administrator of several addiction-related Facebook groups, and one of those is a large nationwide support group called The Addict's Mom. For those of you who would like to call in and participate in our conversation, our call-in number is 347-850-8292. Hello, Brenda dear.
Hello, Donny. Finally made it.
How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. After listening to that song, I was like, I'm hip-hopping and I'm ready to go. Let's do it.
I know, right? I feel the exact same way. And it looks like Jane is already here. Shall we bring her in as well?
Absolutely.
Hello,
hey.
Jane. Welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm here.
Yay!
How are
It's
you?
been a long time.
Good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Good to talk to you guys again.
Yeah, good to have you on again. I mean,
Absolutely.
This is a pretty important topic here. So, we as individuals, Donny and I, and Donny's a very big advocate of many different things, and we thought that this would be a great avenue, great opportunity for you to get this information out to more than just what you've already done. It's another avenue to be able to approach this with. So we are welcome, most joyful that you are here with us to spread the word even more.
Yes, and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
You're most welcome.
Definitely. So, Jane, let's start at the beginning. Like, what provoked you to be an advocate for this? What provoked you to want to start creating awareness for this?
Well, let's see. I have been interested in the psychology field for a very long time. And I started back to school getting my bachelor's in psychology a few years ago. And then about 8 months after I started back to school, a loved one of mine came to me and told me that they were an addict. And it completely blindsided me. I had no idea. Addiction is interesting. The way an addict can hide things. We'll get more into that as we talk, though. But what happened was, in order for me to understand my loved one, it helped me to learn more about addiction. So the more I learned, the more I was able to help my loved one, and the more it helped me. And so as time went on, I came across this website called The Addict's Mom, which The Addict's Mom is actually for anyone whose life has been touched by addiction, whether whether you're a mom or you're a dad or it's your sister or you're a grandparent. If you've got a loved one affected with addiction, I encourage you to check out The Addict's Mom. It really helped me to feel like somebody understood.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time when I felt that I was alone. You know, you start feeling like nobody understands. Nobody knows what you're going through. You start asking yourself, you know, why, what happened? You're consumed with the thoughts about your loved one's addiction, and you know, you sit there and wonder, what in the heck am I going to do? What can I do next to help? Well, I came across The Addict's Mom, and the site helped me a lot. Just being there to encourage me, to help support me, and to know that there were people there who understood what I was going through was great. They have a large nationwide group, as you mentioned in the intro, but they also have a group in each state, a Facebook group for each state. So I was in the nationwide group and in the state groups. And as time went on, I started getting involved in more and more of what was going on in my state group, and I was asked if I wanted to be an administrator for the main group. So I decided I would love to do that. And then before long, I was an administrator for the Michigan group. So now it's been one step after the next, and I've learned more, and it's helped so much. And the more that I've learned between my studies in college and what I've learned from The Addict's Mom and just my research, and it's helped me. I've helped so many other people. So I guess that's what's brought me to the point of being an advocate, wanting to be able to help people manage what they're going through and understand that there is hope for a better future. There is hope for recovery. Recovery does work.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Definitely. That was amazing, Jane. And see, the thing is, like, the uniqueness of your position also as an advocate, not only are you being there for those going through that addiction, but you're being there for those people surrounding the individual going through that addiction too, which that, as you mentioned earlier, can affect them, profoundly as well.
Yes, definitely.
You know, it is very special that we have people like you and Donny that are out there helping others. I mean, I help in a different way, but not quite the way that you both are doing in standing up and helping others the way you do. And that's commendable. And we need more people like you guys to get up there and to do something like this and say, no, we have loved ones. And, that's the unfortunate thing is sometimes we don't do anything. We're not, catapulted or encouraged to do anything if it doesn't happen to someone in our lives or to us. So this is great that you guys can step into that.
And unfortunately, I know with my situation, and probably Donny will agree with his situation, unless you have somebody in your life who is an addict, you don't understand what it's like to go through it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't, because people will say, well, it's a choice. All they have to do is just stop. Well, it's not a choice. Addiction is a disease.
Mm-hmm.
Just to say that addiction is a choice leads you to believe that the addict can stop whenever they want. that's called a habit, not a choice. Not a. I mean, that's called a habit. That's an addiction means that it's controlling you, which is exactly what's happening with addiction and disease. It's controlling them. They really have no capability of having control over it. And as we'll talk a little bit further, you'll hopefully get a better understanding of what I mean, because I can talk a little bit about in a way that people can understand about the neurology of addiction and how it affects the brain. And I'll talk about the neurons and the axons and the this and that, but I'll talk about it in a way that it's not like, oh my God, neurons and axons and holy crap, what are you talking about? You'll understand exactly what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
And not that I'm excusing the addict's behavior, but it helps you to understand a little bit better and have a little bit more compassion for their circumstances. Because
not to mention more patience, too.
Yeah, because, an addict does not get up in the morning, did not at some point in their lives say, oh my gosh, I'm going to be an addict someday. That is not something you aspire to be. Addiction sucks. And people who are addicted don't like themselves very much. It's a horrible place to live.
Mm-hmm. And it's with the last show, I mean, I'm bringing it back to discussing about things that we're trying to create awareness over. Yep. The last show we talked about the fact that male sexual assault is something that does exist, like men can be raped. And I have heard this associated with discussing the subject of addiction as well. People like the populace is so afraid to talk about such things because they try to underplay it like it's something that doesn't really happen. And I think what we're doing right now is very important because we're telling them that it does happen. We can't keep continually sweeping the subject under the rug.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And people keep things to themselves, like addiction, because they're ashamed to let their neighbors know. They're ashamed to let the other family members know. They're ashamed to let their friends know. And if, glory be, if they would just open their mouth, they would probably find out their neighbors, their friends, and their family are probably having a lot of the same problems they are because addiction is so widespread. Addiction affects so many people's lives, unfortunately, and everybody's trying to keep it to themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And because everybody's keeping it to themselves, it still holds such a stigma.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in all walks of life. I mean, it isn't just the poor or middle class or the higher class. I mean, it's everywhere. Children, adults, it's everywhere. And addiction it comes in many forms. So, it is. I have to admit that when I was in the service, when I first was in the service and went overseas for the very first time, I became an alcoholic. And luckily, though, I realized that my natural high was higher than I could get with the alcohol. And after a while, and yes, that was very interesting and, a very interesting time frame. But I also had a support of my ex-husband, or my former husband. He was not my husband at the time, but there were other things that were going on in that particular scenario that he pulled me out of. I did not seek any type of medical help or counseling, but
right.
I did work through it, and so I do understand about the addiction part of it, and about why you do certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And as you said, Brenda, you started to say, addiction knows no boundaries.
No.
I have a Facebook group that I started called The Face of Recovery, and that's the description of the group. In the description of the group, I explain addiction has no boundaries. It's a rich person's disease. It's a poor person's disease. It's a white person's disease and a black person's disease. It's a red person's, a yellow person's, and a blue person's disease. It's an American disease, and it can just as easily be an Italian, Irish, or French person's disease. It's the disease of a former U.S. president, George W. Bush. It's a U.S. Congressman, Pat Kelly, and a former Texas governor, Ann Richards. It's the disease of a grocery store clerk, a mechanic, and even a middle school student. Kids as young as 10 to 12 years old are getting involved in drugs.
That's bad. And really,
wow.
Right. And really, what is it that makes them go into that direction? Is it peer pressure? Is it pressure from home to escape? For me, going into the alcoholism and going that direction when I first went overseas is because I was there all by myself. I didn't have any friends at the time. It was all new. It was a different country. The only thing that I could escape from and through was drinking. I was so bad that all of my paycheck went into drinking. I didn't have nothing. I didn't have nothing. Yeah. So this is
what would you?
Yeah. Go ahead.
What would you call your emotion that drove you to your addiction?
Loneliness.
Okay.
Definitely loneliness. And wanted to escape. It was the escapism part of it. I just wanted to escape what I was feeling and going through, and it was overwhelming. So maybe it wasn't, loneliness, but it was the overwhelming stuff in my daily life that I went through that got me to drink. And I think I just started out, just going to what they call an NCO, not the NCO club, but the enlisted club, and just having a social drink. And then I realized, oh, wow, I can get away from my everyday stress by doing this. And you just do it to get stress-free, and then it becomes more and more an addiction.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
And not too many people know that story. Now everybody does.
Now everybody does, and it's very brave of you to share that.
It is,
yeah,
definitely.
Very brave. Definitely. But, a very large amount of addicts have what it's called dual diagnosis. And dual diagnosis means that you have some type of mental disorder, which could be, as simple as, but as depression. But it might be depression, it might be ADHD, it might be anxiety, it might be PTSD, it might be, something from the past that happened to you from the past. It could, it could be schizophrenia. It could be, so think about all bipolar. Think about all the mental diseases and a lot of mental diseases go hand in hand with addiction.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that that's the only reason.
And it's because you want to escape from those particular issues. That particular issue or those particular issues. And it doesn't have to be just one. It could be a plethora of things. And it could be little things up to huge things like a loss of a loved one or the inability to be able to be with a loved one, I mean, on the physical or the spiritual plane. So it could be just about anything. And depression definitely is a big contributor.
Sure. You know, as research has shown, of course, I'm sure that you've heard for a long time that research has shown that addiction is a hereditary disease. But there's so many other things that come into play with addiction besides it being hereditary. You know, if you have a family member who's addicted, it depends on if you have a mother that's an addict, or if you have a father that's an addict, or if you have a mother and a father that's an addict, or if you have a mother who's an addict and the mother and her parents are addicts. You know, the chances of you being an addict go up. However, as the genetic as it goes up the line. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, aside from that, gender makes a difference. Men are twice as apt to fall prey to addiction than women. And as I mentioned, people with depression, anxiety, ADHD, things like that. And then, as you mentioned earlier, also peer pressure is a big role. Everybody wants to feel liked. Everybody wants to be part of the group, to belong. That's to feel like you belong is actually one of the that's a need. That's one of the basic needs that we have, is to belong. And people feel that in order to belong, if their friends are using, that's what's going to make them be accepted into the group, is for them to use as well. Yeah. And then you've got peers who are saying flat out, you need to do this in order to belong to the group.
Mm-hmm.
But then also, there's an attachment that is formed at birth between a mother and an infant and a father and an infant. That attachment that is developed at birth plays a huge role in the way that infant is going to relate to those parents throughout life. And getting that closeness at infancy is very important, and maintaining that closeness is not always easy to do. But that's important to do, is to maintain that closeness and bond as your children grow. And I'm not saying that it's the parents' fault.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not blaming anybody, because this isn't a blame game.
Mm-hmm.
The type of substance that's being used makes a difference. When somebody starts dabbling into and being curious about drugs and starts trying different things, the type of substance that somebody is using makes a difference. For instance, people don't usually start with heroin and cocaine and crack, but those are all much highly more addictive than alcohol. People who are in recovery have told me that once they've tried heroin and meth, or they've felt that needle in their veins, they knew at that very instant, they knew they were going to chase that high for whatever it was worth. It is that addictive.
Yep.
And it's scary.
Well, and part of it is our body produces a natural opium And the natural opium in itself is to stop pain or, subside pain. So when the body gets a huge burst of that, they automatically become addicted because it's like, woo, I mean, I'm chuckling, but it's like, it's there. So that's another reason why people become so addicted so quickly with one shot of this stuff.
And then keep in mind something that a lot of people don't think about. A lot of drug addicts will tell you their first drug dealer was their doctor.
Oh.
Prescription pain pills are extremely overprescribed.
Mhm.
And when somebody gets hooked on prescription pain pills and then they're suddenly stopped, withdrawal symptoms are painful. And an addict will do whatever is necessary to stop that pain. So they turn to the street. And at first they go and they'll buy one of those pain pills. And then somebody tells them, oh, did you know, though, that if you shoot heroin, that it costs less and you can get a better high than this? And they're like, oh, really? So then they start chasing heroin.
Wow.
Yeah.
Could that also be said for marijuana? Because, we have this big craze going on right now with marijuana, the medical marijuana and stuff like that, but it almost sounds like they're doing the same thing with this medical marijuana.
As far as what?
As far as getting it to reduce the pain or, to move, yeah.
Medical marijuana, from what I understand, that it's the THC. I don't know a lot about it, but from what I understand, that it's the THC that's in medical marijuana that helps the pain.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've just recently read, and I don't know, like I said, don't quote me on this, I don't know if this is factual, but that smoking marijuana isn't as helpful as
the topical.
But not the topical, but like when you have medical marijuana, they have different strains of marijuana, and they have got it down to the specific strain of the THC levels, and they know what it is. But for someone to say, I'm going to go smoke a joint because, this is going to make me feel better, and medical marijuana,
right.
And they start comparing their joint to medical marijuana, there is no comparison.
Yeah, that stuff stinks, man.
Yeah,
to me, it smells like skunk, but others it smells different. But yes,
but there is a lot of value with marijuana. Marijuana does help pain.
Mm-hmm.
Marijuana is good in a lot of situations. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. There's still a lot of people addicted to it. It still hurts a lot of people. There's still a lot of people who are in a lot of trouble because of marijuana. There's still a lot of people who marijuana has been their gateway drug that got them involved into doing this and this and this and this afterwards.
Exactly.
But, there's also just as many people who have done marijuana, and that's all they do. I don't do anything else. I only do marijuana, and it hasn't led me to anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the difference in the disease and the difference in the diseased brain.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference in, just because you have the hereditary gene does not mean that you're going to be an addict. I mean, look at all the people that went to Vietnam. In order for all those men to cope in Vietnam, they did heroin. But when they came back, they stopped. Many of them did. But a lot of that reason is because they were out of that environment, which is a big factor.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
When you're getting recovery, you have to change your environment.
Yeah, that's huge, because you really do. Yep.
A gentleman that I listen to that posts videos on Facebook and in my groups, he says when he started getting clean that he was told there's only one thing that you're going to have to change about yourself, and that's everything. So, and that's exactly it. You got to change your environment. You got to change your friends. You got to change, we'll talk more about how your environment and everything makes a difference and how everything comes into play.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Oh,
wow.
Okay, with that.
Should we go on our first break since we're about a little over halfway through the first? Well, I cannot speak right now. We are past the first half-hour mark. And welcome back to Universal Journeys, everyone. Follow your heart, for only you know which path is right for you. Our topic tonight has been a discussion of addiction and advocating for awareness with our guest, Janie Saylor. We've been having a very thought-provoking discussion, and we are going to continue it here shortly. But first, I wanted to do a few advertisements. If you like listening to our show, feel free to visit us at our different social media locations. If you go to Facebook and type in Universal Journeys, you should be able to find our show. If you click like, you'll be able to see all of our page updates, including uplifting memes, discussions, things regarding our show that you may not know. And also, we are in the process of getting our show uploaded to YouTube. So if you go to youtube.com and you type in Universal Journeys, you should be able to find our show. When you do, you're more than welcome to subscribe to our channel. All right, Jane, your plugs.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to talk about, I have two Facebook groups. One of them is called Addiction, You're Not Alone. And it's for people whose lives have been affected by addiction, whether you're a parent, a sibling, a friend, or perhaps you're even the addict. If you're hurting, this group offers upbeat news and information about addiction and recovery. I post upbeat memes and images, and there's videos there about people who are in recovery. So it's very uplifting, so that you're seeing something that's not always a downer. I mean, addiction is a downer no matter who you are. If your life has been affected by addiction, it's depressing. So This is some place to go to get some upbeat information and feel a little bit better. It's called Addiction, You're Not Alone. If you go to if you can type into the groups on Facebook and look for it, Addiction, You're Not Alone, or if you you can go to Facebook.com/groups/Addiction, You're Not Alone. And it's YOURE, Not Alone. Addiction, You're Not Alone, all one word. And then the other group is called Face of Recovery. And this is a place where you can share your recovery story or simply snap a photo of yourself with a sign that says, I'm the face of addiction. Or I'm the face of recovery, I'm sorry. Or you can simply be encouraged by the recovery stories of other people So if you'd like to go there, you can, again, go to the groups and look for Face of Recovery. Or, again, go to facebook.com/groups/Face of Recovery. All one word.
Excellent. Thank you, Jane.
Yeah. And then the two groups that I'm a administrator for, the Addict's Mom. You can check them out on the website. There's a website, theaddictsmom.com. Or you can also join. There's an open community with the Addict's Mom. And then there's also a closed community with the Addict's Mom, both of them on Facebook. So if you'd like to check into that, just type in the Addict's Mom into the groups and you'll find it. If you live in Michigan, I'd love to have you join the Michigan group. It's TAM, T-A-M. T-A-M is for the Addict's Mom. If I'm talking about the Addict's Mom, tonight you'll hear me say TAM, the acronym. So it's called TAM, T-A-M, TAM Michigan. So if you type into the Facebook groups TAM Michigan, you'll find the Michigan group and you can join there.
I'm glad you specified that it was an acronym because at first I was like, did someone named Tammy invent it? What?
Nope, it's the acronym, The Addict's Mom. So.
Excellent, thank you. Brenda, were you going to say something earlier? I feel like I cut you off accidentally.
I haven't said anything since we came back.
Oh, okay, I thought you made like some sort of noise that insinuated you were going to say something. Sorry. Okay.
No, that's okay.
Okay, so last half hour we were talking about how peer pressure is a significant influence when it comes to people falling to addiction. And I wanted to share a story. I've never suffered from any sort of addiction, but I know other people who have, people who were very close to me at one point, and I dated someone who I believe had an addiction to alcohol and marijuana. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people try to play off those types of addictions as being, oh, we're just having fun. This is just, casual, get-together kind of fun. But what really showed me that he had a specific addiction was when he did not have any of those things in his system and how he acted.
Yeah.
And I realized that he was very irritable, always he didn't want to socially interact, spoke nothing other than of finding his next, blunt or whatever, or he couldn't wait to drink again. And I remember them trying to peer pressure me a lot into drinking. Well, not all of them, but a few people, and they would kind of make me seem like this, stick in the mud, stupid person because I did not want to drink or participate. And that just really made me realize that, those are the types of situations that, force people into participating in that type of, addiction atmosphere. But again, it comes back to that whole, sweeping under the rug thing, because people continually assume that it's something that's innocent. It's something that is just considered, quote unquote, fun. And it needs to change, and I'm really glad we're talking about this type of thing, because it needs to be discussed.
Yes. Well, first of all, most addicts don't want to be around people who aren't addicts. And that's why they try to wrestle you into joining them, is because it makes them uncomfortable because you're not using.
Yep.
Okay. Another thing addicts will say, especially with marijuana, it grows. It's a plant. It grows. What could be wrong with it? Do you know how many plants are poisonous?
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
It was, how many things have, just because it's a plant and it grows means nothing.
Exactly.
Herbs that you purchase are dangerous if you don't know how to use them. Yes, they're over the counter. Yes, you can buy them over the counter. But if you don't use them right and you don't know what you're using them for, you can really hurt yourself.
Yeah. Well, that, and people also don't realize that in a lot of ways, too much of anything can be a bad thing.
Yep. And then lastly, I've often heard addicts say, I don't know what the problem is, I'm just hurting myself. It's just, I'm doing it to myself. What's your problem? What they don't realize is they're not just doing it to themselves. Addicts are hurting everyone around them. They don't realize the emotional pain and the emotional trauma that they're causing everyone around them. The marriages that have been broken up because of a child's addiction.
Mm-hmm.
The jobs that have been lost because of an addiction. The homes that have been lost because of an addiction. The people that are living homeless on the street because of an addiction. The families that are living homeless on a street because of an addiction.
Mm-hmm. We have a comment in the chat room from Duster, and Duster states, I just have to say something. I have been around addiction all my life in many forms, and I feel strongly now that it's more about lifestyle patterns that a person grows up with.
Lifestyle patterns that a person grows up with does make a difference. When, as a parent, we try to teach our kids right from wrong, and we tell our kids, for instance, when they're little, you'll tell them, don't smoke cigarettes as you sit there smoking a cigarette. Kids will watch what you do and pay attention to what you do and learn from what you do more than what you say.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
As they start growing up and you're telling them, don't do drugs, don't go out and party, don't drink alcohol. I'll be in at midnight tonight. I'm going to the bar with my friends.
Yeah.
That
almost
grinds my gears.
Almost like do it
and
what
once in a while,
I say, not as I do.
Once in a while, that's great. Kids got to understand, I'm the adult here. Kids have to understand that. I'm the adult, I can do that. But if that's the way you live, is that every weekend, you yourself as the parent are out partying? What are you teaching your child?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is how you go out and have fun. Is you go out to the bar and you have fun. This is what you do. You have to have alcohol to have fun. When you have a party at your house where everybody comes over, the family comes over, is there always alcohol there? Is there always alcohol for the grown-ups? That you're teaching your kids that grown-ups drink alcohol, which is fine, but how much alcohol are these grown-ups drinking? How drunk are these grown-ups getting? All those things make a difference. If you're just having cocktails, that's one thing. But you have to use your judgment.
Mm-hmm. Well, people don't realize that kids.
You have to think about those things.
people don't realize that kids remember images and situations, and I feel like that they always try to play off that, oh well, that's a choice that they're making. Well, but think about the choice that you made a long time ago when you were doing that in front of your children, right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's such a contradiction.
Well, and then for me, what it was is I did grow up around some of that, but luckily it wasn't necessarily my parents. It was more like an aunt and uncle who we used to go over to, and they would drink quite a little bit. But when we went home, my parents always told us, don't be like that. Don't be like them. And they showed us that they were not like them, because when they were home, they didn't have that, didn't drink. And I think that's because there was an incident that happened when I was very young, and my brother and sister, at least I think my brother was born, but my sister wasn't yet. That happened, and my mother put her foot down. And she told my father, if you ever drink again, like you did, I'm getting a divorce.
Oh, good for her.
I thank my mother for all of that. And for me growing up and seeing that aspect of, okay, this is what my aunt and uncle have gone through, and I see how their children turned out, or my cousins turned out, and then how my brother or sister and I turned out. Because the cool thing about all of this is none of my two siblings, myself and my brother and sister, are alcoholics to this day. We're not. Right. Because my mom and dad, toted the line with that and said, okay, here you go. That's not to say that I didn't try it when I was overseas, and I think that's part of the coming through and doing it on my own process, because I remember Mom and Dad and what they did.
Right.
Excuse me.
Right. Well, something that you had... Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, something that you had said started me thinking about one of my points here that I wanted to make about, children being like sponges and learning so quickly from, I wanted to talk about how the brain works. So the brain has billions of neurons. And with each experience and thought and memory that you have, all of those neurons have the capacity, they release these messengers known as neurotransmitters, and they all communicate with one another. And these neurotransmitters travel through axons, and you just think of axons as wires. There's these wires that are all over your brain. You have trillions of these wires up there. These wires, they send the messengers, the neurotransmitters. They help them communicate back and forth. At the point of the communication, where the neurotransmitters make that communication, it's called a synapse. Mm-hmm. When you're born, you have twice as many synapses in your brain than what you'll have when you're an adult. That's why children learn so easily. That's why they are like sponges, because they have all those synapses. That's why they can learn the languages that they do and do all the things that they do. And why, as you're growing up and starting to become a teen, what happens is those synapses start dying off. And it's like your brain narrowing down what it is that you're interested in. It's like zooming in on the topics that you enjoy doing and what you want to start becoming proficient at. all those synapses that you don't use are dying off. And the ones that you do use are going, oh, yeah, let's do that, and becoming more active.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's why, though, the teenagers, your brain still isn't formed in your teenage years. And so all these things, the neurotransmitters and all these things that you're doing and all the axons and the connections and the synapses and all the little parts of your brain that are in charge of your memory, the little spot in your brain that's in charge of your memory, the little spot in your brain that's in charge of your emotions, and the part that makes this neurotransmitter for your reward pathway fire up, and all those little, when you start doing drugs, all those things screw up. So when you start doing drugs, addictive drugs affect your behavior. They affect the communication of those neurotransmitters through the wires. And all those neurotransmitters, each one does something different. It does something different in your body and in your brain. Each one performs a different function. So, but when you have an experience that satisfies a need or fulfills a desire, this hormone called dopamine, it's a neurotransmitter. It activates your reward pathway. And it gives you this sense of euphoria. It gives you that, you know how when you eat a good meal and you just go, oh man, that was good. And it gives you that really good feeling? Now, under normal circumstances, that reward pathway is activated whenever you have that positive experience. And it's normally, it's supposed to be for the things that we use our needs, like for a good meal, for satisfying sex, or for when we go for a long run, you have that good euphoria feeling.
Mm-hmm.
But what happens is when we're using drugs, the memory is recorded in the brain records the positive activity that you have from the dopamine. It records that, and it sinks it into the memory so that it can remember it, so that you can think, oh man, I want to do that again. So I want to have that meal again. I want to go for that long run again. I want to run down that path in those woods again, because that was really beautiful and that made me feel really good. Or it could just as easily be, ooh, I want to try that drug again. That made me feel really good. But when you're doing drugs, all the little details that your memory records, like you start remembering things like the mood that you were in, who you were with, where you were, what you wore that day. I mean, who knows what kind of things that your brain might record about, when you're using a particular drug. But what happens is all those things are triggers that make you want to use again. So when you wake up and you're in that mood again, the mood that you used when you had that drug in the first place, and it made you feel better, and you wake up and you say, oh, I have that mood again, but you know what? That drug made me feel better the last time. I'll go use it again. Or you used with a particular friend, and you go hang with that particular friend, and it reminds you oh, you know what? We were doing heroin that last time we got together. Let's do that again. Or it might be where you were. Or it might be what you wore that day. It might be that green shirt. Oh, man, I remember that green shirt. Yeah, I remember that green shirt. I remember that, all those little things are triggers that'll make you want to use again. And what ends up happening, though, too, is when you're in recovery, all those little triggers are also the things that'll make you want to relapse again. So you really got to be on your toes. Because when you wake up in that mood, you got to be on your toes and say, yeah, I woke up in that mood, but I can't go use today. And hopefully, you've changed your friends. So the person that you're with isn't even a factor anymore. Because that's one of the first things they teach you in recovery. Mm-hmm. You change all your friends. Those people aren't your friends anymore. You got to get a whole new group of people to hang with.
Because you can't really recover if you have people encouraging you to continue.
That's right. And even if they're not encouraging you to continue, they're your trigger.
That association.
That's right. They're your trigger. Or where you are. To think that you can go into a bar, if you're an alcoholic, to think that you can go into a bar that you used to drink at, and go into a bar with all the people that used to be there, and just have a Coke for the evening and shoot pool and stuff, where you used to go and drink like a fool and shoot pool, and you think you can go in there when you're in recovery now and just have a Coke and shoot pool? Yeah, probably not so much.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not so much. But depending on the drug that you're using, that reward pathway that I talked about becomes damaged really quick. And when it becomes damaged, the dopamine actually stops being released. And when the dopamine stops being released, the addict doesn't feel that euphoria anymore. And so the addict has to start using more. They need more of the drug in order to feel that euphoria.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And even if they wanted to quit, at this point they're addicted. If they wanted to quit, they start having withdrawal symptoms, then the pain starts coming of the withdrawal. That's one of the main things that I've heard from addicts that'll keep them addicted, is trying to avoid the pain of withdrawal.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. I can so see that, because you don't want to have that pain. It's like going through, it's like going, I'm going to give you a off-the-wall scenario. It's like you're in love with someone, and something happens to them, and you're so connected to them, and they pass away. And then now you're left here all by yourself. You want someone in your life, but you don't want someone in your life because you're afraid that you're going to have to go through that pain again.
That's right.
That's a simple scenario.
That's right.
So for that individual, they stay by themselves. Been there doing that. I mean, so I know that.
Mhm.
And it sounds like it'd be the same type of scenario.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, shall we go on break?
Yes, let us take our next break.
Yeah,
it's been about another 30 minutes.
Oh, my goodness.
Okay, Donny, let's go ahead and play that song.
I'm just blabbing up the corn.
That's good, though. This is good.
This is really good. I think we have something really awesome going on here. And welcome back to Universal Journeys, everyone. I just absolutely love that song. It's so uplifting and beautiful, and I really think it definitely meshes with what we're talking about here today, too. For those of you who may just be tuning in right now, we are joined by our guest, Janie Saylor, who is helping us understand and developing a little bit more awareness about addiction and recovery. And this is a subject that we've been wanting to discuss here for a long while now because, again, like we've talked about before, we try to discuss things that are under-discussed. So, Jane, take it away.
Okay. I wanted to talk about the groups that I belong to called the Addict's Mom. The Addict's Mom was founded by Barbara Theodoso, who lives in South Florida. Back in 2007, she found out that she had 2 of her sons were addicts. And the sadness and the emotional pain and shame that goes on with finding out that your child is an addict. She knew that there had to be someplace, somewhere out there in this world, other people were feeling the same thing. And so Barbara had the foresight to create a group called the Addict's Mom. It's a place for mothers to share their emotional pain, and it's a safe community where people can share without shame and help stop the stigma of addiction. The people who have that attitude with the shame and stigma of addiction they're not even welcome in the group. I mean, we're pretty careful about that. But the Addict's Mom has over 50,000 members between the website and the Facebook group, the main group, and the open community, and all of the state groups. And then there's several specialty groups, which I'll talk about. But in the Addict's Mom, you can share your thoughts with people who understand what you're going through and can support and encourage you. Like I mentioned, the Addict's Mom has all the groups in the Addict's Mom, other than the open community, are all closed groups, which means you don't have to be afraid that somebody, one of your friends in Facebook, is going to know that you belong to this group. It's very private. Your privacy is very important to us. Mm-hmm. In the Addict's Mom, we offer scholarships. There's blogs. There's educational resources about addiction and treatment. And there's special events and projects that you can be a part of. There's, like I said, there's the state groups. There's even the group in Canada. There's
and so it's wide-reaching. Excellent.
It is, definitely. There's, just to go over some of our specialty groups, there's a specialty group called the Grieving Moms, which is for people whose children have passed from addiction. There's a group for grandparents who are raising their grandchildren because their children are addicts. There's a group for healthy moms, which kind of gives you the opportunity to think about yourself instead of thinking about your addict. We've got a group called the Addict's Dad, so dads can join in. But we do have some dads on the Addict's Mom site as well. We have a group called The Addict, which is for those in recovery, because in order to be a member of the Addicts Mom, you have to have a year in recovery. We have a group called the Addicts Sibling. If your brother or sister is a addict, the Addicts Child. If it was your parents who's your addict. And then we have a group called the TAM, again, the Addicts Mom, TAM, the Medication Assisted Treatment Group, which is where you can learn about the medication that is used to help with the detox of drug addicts, Vivitrol, methadone, Suboxone. There's also more groups that I didn't even discuss. So TAM offers a lot of groups, a lot of places for you to go to get support and love. So I really encourage people to check out the Addicts Mom. And if you're feeling alone and like other people don't understand, because like I said, if your child is an addict and you're trying to talk to your friends whose children aren't addicts or your family, they don't understand. They don't understand what you're going through. You know, some families might have the attitude, oh, just throw them out. Just do this. You know, not that easy.
Yeah, and that does not solve anything either.
Does not solve anything. That's right. And then another thing that the Addicts Mom is good for is to help you realize things. We have people that post that we help them through when, oh my gosh, help me, I'm going to enable my child. You know, it's like, help me understand, what should I do? You know, so it's like in real time, you know, we can help somebody to be able to, you know, oh my goodness, you know, be strong, you know, get through it, we're here for you, and offer some suggestions of what they can try. One of my friends in the group, one of my administrator friends gave me a quote I'd like to read. She said, I personally feel that being a parent of an addict might be the most lonely feeling in the world. TAM is a safe place to finally learn you're not alone. It also empowers you to understand that codependency isn't going to help anyone, especially the addict. I felt like I was able to shift my focus off my addict and could finally focus on doing service for others. And once I joined, my son found a rehab facility within 48 hours.
How awesome is that?
Very awesome.
Wow.
Very awesome. You know, and it just goes to show you, you know, sometimes it just takes you taking your focus off your addict, you know, it just takes you stop enabling them.
Let's,
and, you know,
go ahead.
When I've interviewed recovering addicts, that's one of the things that they'll say is like, oh my gosh, stop enabling. Stop enabling, you know. Be a parent. Stop trying to be my friend. Be a parent.
Well, another problem with enabling is, like, if a parent does put their foot down and their child stops, for example, and then they end up going through the withdrawal symptoms, like they end up feeling terrible for their child for experiencing pain. And of course, the only way to make them not have that pain is by, you know, giving them that drug again. And I feel like enabling is one of those very insidious things that you don't necessarily know is a bad thing when in fact it actually is.
The thing that you do as far as not enabling your child, and something that you skipped over when you said when withdrawal symptoms start, the only thing you can do is they can use again. They can go to treatment.
Mhm.
And that's what you tell them. I'm here for you. I love you so much. The only way I can help you is if you go to treatment. Treatment's always an option. It's always there. Oh, I'm so sorry. You're going to call me again for help? I'm so sorry. You want to go to treatment? Not ready yet? Oh, I'm so sorry. I can't help you yet. I'm so sorry. But as soon as you're ready to go to treatment, the option's still open. Very, very hard. Very hard.
Well, another thing
because as parents, all we want to do is fix it.
Yep.
We're so used to fixing their boo-boos and kissing them and making them feel better and hugging them and doing all these things for them, and you know, we can't fix this.
Yep. Exactly.
So,
well, another thing is that when the addict wants the drug, they're very, very good at knowing what things to do. They're very good at knowing what emotions to provoke.
Oh yes.
In the parent, especially, and I really feel like that people who know addicts also need to be on their guard and be very careful with what they say and do, because if someone comes up to you and is like, "Oh, I need money for grocery shopping," like and you know that they're an addict, you need to take into consideration: are they really going to use that money for grocery shopping, or are they going to use it for something else? And I feel like that a lot of people who enable like to live in that blissful ignorance, like, oh, this would never happen.
Not my child.
To people like that, you need to open your eyes, because until you do, like, that problem's going to still continue.
And a good way to find out what they're going to use it for is to tell them, here, let's go shopping. I'll buy your food.
Exactly.
Yep.
Come on, I'll go shopping with you. I'll buy your food. Then all of a sudden they're like, no, you know, or I'll still get pissed.
Yeah.
That's another manipulative. You know, they start pushing those buttons, and they know. Of course, they know what it takes to get you to sway to their side.
Mm-hmm.
They've lived with you their whole life. They know what it is that it takes.
Exactly.
We have another comment in the chat room, and this is from Duster again. It says, I once had a friend who was addicted to cocaine. She asked me for help when her veins were totally infected. She had to be monitored during her withdrawal. Her mom had been an addict. She did not stay straight for long.
That's sad.
Yes. And that goes back to mom, that's, I wonder at that point if mom was addicted, then was she also taking cocaine while this young lady was in her womb?
Yeah. Yep, very well could be.
Yep, and Duster said, the thing is, I didn't have a clue until she turned to me for help. Duster didn't have a clue that she was, dealing with drugs or was an addict.
And you got to keep in mind, addicts are very resourceful.
Mhm.
And addicts are so resourceful to get their drugs that if they really want help, they will be just as resourceful to get their help. And I'll tell you what, when an addict wants help, they are very resourceful.
Mm.
Yep. They're very resourceful. They're very good at using that emotional manipulation. They're very good at twisting situations into appearing as though they're a different situation. It's very complex.
And that goes back to what I talked about with the brain, with the damage in the brain areas.
Mhm.
But also, it goes along with the damage in the brain areas is the way that the brain functions. Teenagers don't have the ability to make judgment calls, period. It's not because of what they're thinking, because you say, what is my teenager thinking? It's because of how they're thinking. Their judgment and insight, the functions in their brain, the areas of their brain that are in charge of judgment and insight, which is the frontal lobes, aren't fully formed. They're not connected yet. So they don't have the capacity to make those judgment calls yet. So they're more. That's another reason why they're so susceptible to falling prey to addiction, is because they don't have the capacity to make that judgment call to say, is this a good choice? Yeah, so, and then when you start using drugs, that area in your brain, the frontal lobe, is hindered even further. So the lack of good judgment from the addict saying, and they'll start saying and doing these crazy things that are so outside of their character, between the undeveloped brain and the damage that they've done to themselves from the use of the drug and the activated reward pathway that because they're chasing the high, and they're trying to make these judgment calls about, and they start, this is what happens, though. They have all this stuff going on, and then they'll start trying to make these judgment calls, and they'll start choosing the drug over things that matter, like their family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, their rationality is skewed.
It's so
completely gone.
Is the addict, is their frontal cortex, that's what's affected, the brain, part of the brain that's affected? Or is that the area in which it's affected?
The prefrontal cortex is the part that's not. There's lots of parts that's not fully formed, but the prefrontal cortex is the part that has to do with the judgment and the insight.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the wire, for lack of a better word, the wires that work to make that, to be able to make that judgment call aren't connected, and that part of the brain is actually the last part of the brain to be fully formed. Exactly that, what you said, to develop.
Yeah, develop. On a spiritual aspect, okay, with paranoid people or schizophrenic people, and also with bipolarism, that part of the brain, that frontal cortex, is not developed, and that's why they can see what they see, and they go through the things that they go through. With the bipolar people, they cut themselves to release any of that energy and everything else that's there, and the frontal cortex is part of that process of why they feel and see what they do, along with the schizophrenic. Those individuals that they see are real, okay? But we, as in those who have been able to develop the frontal cortex, or the frontal cortex was developed, we can't see these individuals. And it's quite interesting because I did a little bit of study on this subject. It's quite interesting because people like myself who are intuitive and mediums and stuff like that, we try to get that out of the way so we can see what these individuals are seeing, which is really bizarre to me.
Yeah.
Because we strive to see what they're seeing, but they're freaked out by what they're seeing. And that stuff is real. And we say that it's not. And I say, you guys over there who say it's not real, you're crazy. Because what these people are seeing, that's real. Even though it's not fully developed, those individuals, those people who are schizophrenic, those people who are bipolar, they see that. Mediums see what they see. So we need to stop saying that they're crazy and try to develop or try to help them to understand what they're seeing and help them to say, okay, this is it. This is how you tell those people to leave you alone, to get rid of stuff and to take control of that particular area. So for me, it's interesting that you're saying this about the addict, which is kind of, it goes hand in hand. And
but the problem,
that's wow.
The problem comes, though, Brenda, is because the things that schizophrenics see actually tell them what to do. And it's different from what you see. And, like, because there's no
filters?
There's no filter. There's no way to really teach a schizophrenic how to deal with what it is that they're seeing. There's no way to really teach them to cope with this and to understand this, and especially because these images that they're seeing and these voices that they're hearing are telling them to do horrible things.
I understand that, but have we tried? Has anybody really sit down and tried? That's my thing, because they're always going on medicate. They're not trying to figure out what really is happening with these individuals because they say that stuff that they're seeing is not real. I say that's bull. I say that we should try as individuals to understand what they're going through. Because I hear voices. They're not always good. Okay, so it's like, no, get the hell away from me, back off, and I've used this phrase a couple times, is get behind me, Satan.
But you have the capacity to understand that.
But I say that we can teach them. I mean, this has not been proven or anything. I got that. Okay. And I do understand where you're coming from, Jane, but we haven't done enough research in this area to soothe my conscience with that.
Right. Right.
And until we do, we won't know.
That's right.
So, Donny, with that said, do we want to take our last break?
Oh, my goodness, really?
And welcome back to Universal Journeys, everyone. Follow your heart, for only you know which path is right for you. Tonight we have been joined by our guest, Janie Saylor, and we have been discussing addiction and recovery and trying to create some awareness with it as well. Jane, thank you so much. I'm just so happy that you're here. Thank you for doing this. It's such a great message, and I think it's something, like I said earlier, that everyone needs to hear, definitely.
Yes, well, thank you for giving me the opportunity. This has been wonderful.
Absolutely.
You're most welcome.
Anytime you want to come back, you're more than welcome.
Oh, I know. Thank you. You guys are so awesome.
Oh.
Hey. I did want to say one thing, though. Duster had a comment in the chat room, which I thought was quite interesting, is that why so many people become intuitive after they have been through an accident and they go, So I honestly think it does. I mean, hypnosis will actually do the same thing. Will get you to be more intuitive. And it's not the first time, but maybe the second or third time of it being put under, because you open up whatever it is there's something that opens up within the brain, and I do believe it's that frontal cortex that it allows you to be able to be more intuitive and see things and stuff like that. Now, when we were on break, Jane did say something. What did you say about that, Jane?
What did I say? Tell me. I'm not sure, honey. What did I say?
I don't know. I can't remember either. But you did say something.
Well, the one thing I did say is that I said that when people cut themselves, that does release the dopamine and activate the reward pathway.
Yeah, about the because I was mentioning there have been times that I've been able to experience things that a person who is bipolar, because the reason that the person with bipolar actually cuts themselves is to release that energy that's built up and has gone all crazy and stuff, and all you want to do is get it out. You want to release it, and that's what they do by cutting themselves. I mean, I've been to that point, but not to cut myself. So I felt that energy, so I understand what they've gone through. And Jane, at that particular time, said, this is why, because the dopamine is released once you cut yourself. And I'm like, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
See, I would not have even picked that up because I didn't go that far. So I released it a different way, like pushing the energy out of my system, not necessarily cutting myself, because I don't like that. It leaves scars.
No.
You know, it's an interesting thought. Like, I wonder if people who are intuitive and don't realize it are the ones who also are susceptible to fall into addiction in order to drown out that, you know, that ability that they have.
Right. Because they don't understand. Yeah.
Like, I know people who have been empaths who have not been able to, like, control it at all, and they don't even realize that they have it. And in order to quail that, you know, perception of other people's emotions, they just completely drown themselves in whatever method that they deem fit in order to just not listen in, you know. And I think, you know, that's something also to take into consideration.
Right. And that's where I say that we should go into talking more spiritually about this and having, you know, to understand and to go in and do not physical experimentation, guys, but to try to understand what they're going through so we can help them through that process, because this is another form of spirituality that we need to understand, and we need to be able to help people with this so they can cope with it, understand it, and not necessarily be cured of it, but how to deal with it. And we haven't done any of that.
Because, unfortunately, addiction is something that, in my opinion, you're not cured of. Once you're an addict, you're an addict. You might be an addict in recovery, but you're an addict.
Right, and that's why I say you can't be cured of it, but you can be taught how to deal with it. And that's what you're doing with the addicts, is you're telling them, you're teaching them how to deal with it. And with all these other things, you know, with the schizophrenic and bipolarism and empathic people and people who drown themselves and other things to get rid of some of this natural beauty that we really have, and I call that a natural beauty because it really is beautiful once you learn how to deal with it and how you can work with it. But until that time, everyone says, you're crazy, you're this, you're that. So you begin to believe that you're that way. And so guess what? You start to medicate in a different form, either by taking drugs or alcohol or whatever it is that you do.
Right.
Even sex addiction could be put into that category as well.
What's that?
Yep.
Even sex addiction can be put into that category as well.
Yeah.
Because you're releasing some other things that are going on there once you get that particular high. So yeah, I got that.
It's still activating the dopamine
there
reward
you go.
pathway.
Yep, there you go.
Definitely.
very good subject, Jane. Very good.
Thank you.
Another comment in the chat room, and Jane, we're going to let you do what you're going to do because we're getting short on time here. It says, it is very transferable as well. Quit one thing and all of a sudden there's another problem. Yep, even habits. Yes, sex. So,
yeah.
All right, Jane, I know you wanted to say something, and we got 10 minutes, so go for the
Oh, my goodness, I got to talk quick. Yeah. I wanted to talk about the Gloucester project that TAM is working on. In Gloucester, Massachusetts, the police chief there, Chief Campanello, in the middle of this year, the beginning of this year, 2015, he decided that enough is enough. He was done putting addicts in jail. He started a program called the Angel Initiative, and he decided that drug addicts who come to the Gloucester Police Department for help will immediately be taken to the hospital and placed into a recovery program.
Wow.
He has him and a few other people started a organization called PAARI. It's PAARI. Their web address is PAARIUSA.org. But PAARI stands for Police Assisted Addiction and Recovery Initiative. What they do is they encourage opioid users to seek recovery. They help distribute life-saving opioid-blocking drugs to prevent overdose. And they connect addicts with qualified treatment centers and facilities. They provide resources for police departments and communities that want to do more in their communities to help the people who are addicted. It's been a great program. TAM has actually put together, over the last few months, TAM has had volunteers who have sent mailers to pretty much every single police department in the United States has learned about the Gloucester Project. Every single mayor, every governor. There's been so many different, there's a number of different elected officials that, I can't even tell you how many different titles and stuff that we've sent mailers to. And this Gloucester, the Angel Initiative and PAARI is starting to get picked up in different areas around the country. And other police departments are starting to do the same thing. This is a huge step for recovery. Can you imagine having a son or a daughter who's an addict, and to soon be able to have your son or daughter who's an addict be able to walk into your local police department and ask for help and be able to be placed in a qualified rehab facility free of charge.
Wow, that is amazing.
Between as of October of 2015, the Gloucester Project, the Angel Initiative, they've treated 260 people. And between June and August of 2015, in comparison to 2014 of the same time, the quality of life crimes, which is things like disorderly conduct, vagrancy, and loitering, dropped 23% in their city.
Wow.
They figured that it cost them, get this is an astounding number, it cost them 75% less to treat these people in rehab than it does to put these people in jail.
Wow.
Let that sink in a minute. 75% less.
Wow.
Right now, as of the end of October, there were 34 police departments in 9 states that are in on this program right now, with a ton more that are waiting to go through the program with Perry to get established and be a part of this program. There are 55 rehab facilities that are qualified in 19 states. It's just an astounding program. Just astounding.
Yeah, that is astounding.
Yeah, and Tam has been a part of it. I'm very proud that Tam has been a part of it, and continues to be a part of it. It's just, I'm just speechless over this. It's fantastic. So how much time do I have, Brenda?
Got about 5 minutes left.
Yep, about 5 minutes.
Oh, good. Okay, because I wanted to talk for a few minutes about what should you look for, because there's several signs that you should look for that'll indicate if your child is using drugs. Physical signs, because it's, all right, let me see. Let me look at my notes. Let me look forward in my notes real quick. Okay, yeah. The physical signs are bloodshot eyes, small pupils, frequent nosebleeds, change of appetite and sleep patterns, sudden weight loss, change in personal grooming, coordination problems, injuries and bruises that they'll tell you, I have no idea how I got it, Mom. The smells on their breath and their clothes and their body. They'll get the shakes and the tremors. The drugs will give them the shakes and the tremors. And their behavior, you'll see things like skipping classes, declining grades. That's kind of some obvious stuff. Attendance at school and work, complaints from teachers and coworkers and classmates. This is something, this next one is something that we try to, as parents will say, can't be my child that did this. We'll notice missing money, valuables, or prescription drugs. Another thing that you'll notice is isolated behavior, secretive behavior, or suspicious behavior. A change in the beliefs of family values. Your kids will stop avoiding eye contact. Does that make sense? They'll avoid eye contact. They'll start using more incense and perfume and air fresheners in their rooms and stuff to hide the smells. Psychological changes, unexplained or confusing changes in their personality. All of a sudden, they'll be really moody, and they'll be really angry and fly off the handle over something that's like, oh my gosh, are you serious? Or else they'll be laughing at something that it's like, what are you laughing at? Lack of motivation, and this is hard because lack of motivation and focus is a lot of times just a typical teen thing. So that's something that you got to just kind of know your child. But your child will seem kind of spaced out feeling, kind of spaced out looking. Sometimes they'll act fearful or withdrawn or anxious or paranoid. And I got this information from the National Council on Alcohol and Drug Dependence off the web. But and what can I do if my child is using, and where can I learn more? So important steps if your child is using drugs, you should talk to them about it. Unfortunately, addiction will not go away. You can't ignore it away. You can't punish it away. And most importantly, you can't love it away. Recovering addicts say, don't ignore the signs. Don't look the other way and pretend it's not happening. Many parents want to say, not my child. Well, there's a group on Facebook tonight of over 18,000 moms who all wanted to think the same thing. And there's literally thousands more out there who are going through the distress of discovering that their child is an addict tonight. And there's moms out there whose son or daughter is in an intensive care unit tonight because they overdosed on heroin or meth or some other drug combination. And sadly, there's moms out there who are getting a knock on the door from a uniformed police officer who's there to tell who's there to inform them that their child won't be coming home.
Okay.
At all.
So, unfortunately, Jane, we have to stop there because we are down to like seconds.
That's perfect because I am done.
Okay, cool. So, guys, gals, thank you for listening to the program. We had an awesome time. And remember, follow your heart, for only you know which path is right for you. Moms, keep doing what you're doing to help these children and your loved ones.
Definitely.
Have a great week, everyone. Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Donny.
Thank you.